now because I am recording this session for people to watch and review the intro. I'll put it on YouTube this weekend. If that freaks you out, you do not have to have your camera on. Don't worry, but I will make this available to you at the end of the session today. In addition, in the chat. The chat is where you can ask questions to David. We are talking about voiceover, obviously, so keep it to that. We are here to discuss things. In addition, for everybody who's here, we're at varying levels of being voice actors and engineers ourselves. So people are always, of course, encouraged to contribute in their thoughts and feelings about things concerning gear, concerning technique in the chat as well, so we can kind of talk to each other. For some reason, I struggle to mute you all myself, so if you can please mute yourselves, otherwise I will be finding you and muting you. It's not that I don't love you, I do, I just can't have the chaotic sonar sounds of the Zoom room. So I'm gonna try to get to everybody that I can in this session today and answer as many questions. I'll try to get varied ones, if your question is similar to someone else, I may not get to it. If you've come a couple of times and you're like, Siobhan, why don't you ever answer my questions? Please DM me. I will make sure to prioritize you if I have been missing you in subsequent sessions and previous sessions and things like that. Otherwise, we're so happy to be here. We will be doing this again. We do this every other week at 1 p.m. Eastern. Next time, we will have Noelle Romano, a voice actor in varying fields and genres based in Los Angeles, and she can talk about things like animation as well as commercial narration, and she is a true gem of the earth. So I think that's all the news I have for you. David, how are you doing today?
I'm good today. How is everyone else?
Yeah, jazz hands if you're doing fine.
Any thumbs down?
You can also do like, mid twinkles if you're like, I wish this pandemic was over. Wow. So, okay, wonderful. We've got 100 people here and I love to see it.
107.
So, yeah, here we go. Okay, and counting. So let's going, David.
Yes.
We're gonna go right into it from Lori. Hi, Lori. She's asking, how long do you think someone who is getting coaching should wait before doing a demo?
Well, they have to wait at least until my introduction is over, because I want to thank Siobhan for doing a killer job on these Ask Me Anythings. As always, doesn't she have the spirit, the pep in her voice to just keep everyone engaged? I think, Siobhan, people come to these because of you, not because of the VO information I have. I think it's your lively personality. It's nice. The spirit is terrific. So thank you, and thank you all for joining us on another Thursday afternoon. To answer your question, how long should you be coaching with someone until you're ready to create a demo? I can't give you a specific number because it depends on so many variables, but what I would say is that you should never record a demo until you and your coach feel that you are ready to work solo. So in other words, a coach can bring you into a recording studio and give you line reads and have you record each word individually and edit them together and sort of Photoshop everything together, if you will. But that's misrepresentative of your ability. You want to make sure that you can do what you're supposed to do on your own. So when someone hears your demo and they send you an audition or you download an audition from an online casting site, you're able to turn around a product that sounds like your demo. And when you hit that mark and you're comfortable and you're confident, that's when you record a demo. So yeah, no specific number.
Yeah, it's definitely going to vary for you and your coach as well. From Alexis, here's something I'm curious about. What happens when a voice actor gets sick and sounds stuffy? Do you tell your client that you need an extra few days until you sound normal again?
Normal is a funny word, yes. So let me go through a couple of things. First of all, and I want to sort of sidetrack the answer just so I don't forget to talk about this. It is your responsibility to sound as good as you possibly can, which means all of you should be continually practicing, or I should say deciphering, figuring out what works best for you to sound normal, right? To regain your regular voice. every single time you have the sniffles, an allergic reaction, a sore throat, a headache, you're just feeling tired, keep a chart of what remedies you take to help you sound normal, right? So one time when you have the sniffles, one day perhaps you try one medicine. Another day you just stick with hot green tea with lemon, and so on. And this goes even for someone who's perhaps sibilant. Try a green apple, try a loaf of bread, try all of the different remedies. Keep notes and record yourself and listen back and figure out what works for you, because the time will come in your career that your voice doesn't sound optimal, right? Either you personally don't feel optimal because you don't feel well, you have a headache, or your throat is hurting, or your voice sounds cracky, or whatever it is. Be as prepared as you can to deliver the best product you can to your client. That said, now to the actual answer, face it, everyone gets sick. And at some point in your career, you won't be able to sustain the voice that you need. You won't be able to deliver that to the client. The best thing to do is the moment you think that you may not be able to record or you won't sound normal, contact the client and let them know. Because the more notice you give them, the more they can prepare. Short story, so we had a session once at the studio, a really high-end session. We brought in so many clients for this particular session, some of which who flew in for a recording session. And the voice actor showed up, red nose and all, saying, I don't feel so well. I've had this cold for a week now and it just hasn't gone away. And she sounded so bad. And the client was so mad at us at studio because we did not alert them. And rightfully so, we are the liaison between the voice actor and the client. So we took the hit, of course, and we never hired that voice actor again because she should have done her duty and let us know a week ago. We would have told the client a week ago, hey, be on alert. But like I said, people flew in for this particular session and that sucked for them. And it ultimately sucked for everyone. So if it's going to happen, let the client know. And but certainly do the best job you can to maintain your voice as well as you can.
I also I put in the chat that if people want to talk about some of their personal remedies for when they're trying to help their voice speed recover, you can put it in the chat and we can compare. People are already making me laugh there. You guys are great.
Yeah, no, it's great seriously, comparing notes is great because you may find out something that works for you that you never had thought about. So that's a terrific idea.
And good to keep trying different things too.
Yeah.
From Sarah, I need help choosing a DAW and learning it. Whew. Do you have resources you can point me to? Or David, how do you talk to people about choosing a DAW?
I'm going to make this very brief because this question has come up in a number of these sessions. And I'm sure, in fact, I know that many of the people on, of 122 people right now, many have heard this question come up before and don't want to necessarily hear a long answer. So the short answer is, DAWs all essentially do the same thing. Test drive them all, figure out which one works best for you, which one you're most comfortable with, and go with it. Try a couple free downloads, ask around, but you just have to find one that works, that feels good for you. But again, they all work the same way essentially. At the end of the day, they do the same thing. So any are fine. Sorry, that's not true. It's not that any are fine. Any of the popular ones are fine because anything that's popular, there are user groups and answers you can find online and tutorials you can find online. So
yeah, it's definitely another kind of choose your own adventure for DAWs too. Chandler is asking, for those of us who don't have the space and or revenue right now to set up a home studio, what are our choices?
Oh my goodness, I just had this conversation earlier with someone today. The studio is gonna, like a pro studio, you can get by probably spending $300 right now. It's amazing. You buy a USB microphone, some sound really good. Some are almost as good as like a typical condenser microphone. For $175, $200, you can buy a really a good USB microphone. You need a mic stand that will probably run you $30. You need a good pair of headphones that you could probably find for $50, $60. That's it. That's really all you need. You can find free software, free DAW software, like Audacity is free and it's great and it's popular. And for your recording area, just find a nook, like a corner of a room or something, or a closet, and literally nail pillows, blankets, fleeces, old sweaters, whatever you can, just nail it onto the ceiling, the walls, the floor, hang old carpets and towels behind you, and it'll sound great. Absolutely great. You can have a pro sounding studio for $300. Now, if you don't have the budget for $300, then there's nothing that you can do that I can think of at this point.
I'm also, I'm dropping in the chat our feedback forum, which is part of our Free Career Center, so that we provide lots of free resources and practicing tools so that you can still keep yourself in the game, even if you're not able to spend a lot of money right now. But you can always be practicing and polishing technique, as well as using some of those more affordable hacks to get things going.
Let me add something to my last answer, though. And by the way, Siobhan, great idea to send the feedback forum link. Thank you. So right after the pandemic began, the quarantine began 5 or so months ago, an audition came in at our studio, which required kids, and I have 2 sons, and I recorded them, and I didn't have any equipment at home. So I didn't even have a USB microphone with me at the time, and I used my iPhone. Now, I have acoustic panels at home, so I didn't have to go and bang carpets and sweaters and sleeping bags onto the wall and ceiling and stuff, but I surrounded my kids in acoustic panels, like almost hunched over with like sort of like a blanket over their head, but a panel, soft acoustic panels. And I held a phone like this, and it's not professional quality what came out, but it was good enough for an audition. Now, side note, I wouldn't audition I wouldn't audition because if you ultimately get the job, you will need a microphone. So I wouldn't audition until you actually have a microphone. But an iPhone does a pretty good job. It really does. Now the problem is one of my kids is very jumpy, very movie. So as he was, if my hand is his head, as he was like moving around reading, I had to keep moving the phone back and forth with him, trying to maintain the same distance, which was a little challenging. But the phone, even phones are pretty good these days. So if you're in like a rush or something like that with a client, you can always record an audition on a phone, let them know that it's through a phone. As long as, again, you have a microphone at home, a proper studio setup, then you can sometimes get by with auditioning by phone.
David, Stefan is asking about coach recommendations for beginners. It's kind of a short question, so I don't know if maybe you want to talk about how you might go about finding a coach for a new voice actor and some tips for what they should be looking for.
Yeah, well, ultimately the thing is to figure out if you are marketable. I guess you're looking for 3 things. No, I'm going to rephrase this 2 things. So I would say 2 things. And this is echoing Randy Wrench, who I saw on the call. So I'm using his copy here. You need to figure out if your voice is right for the market and if the market is right for you. So in other words, is your voice marketable? Will people hire you? And if so, you need a coach who understands the entire industry so they can help point you in the right direction and can say, well, no, your voice is not marketable, or it would be, but just in animation or just in audiobooks or just in commercials or maybe all of the genres. But then the other question is, are you right for the industry? Do you have the personality to work professionally, to deal with clients, the go-getter attitude that you need to market yourself? So that's, I think, ultimately what you need to figure out. Are you right for the industry, and is the industry right for you? So seek a coach who has general comprehension of this whole voiceover community that we're in, and work with them. It doesn't take long to answer those questions. It takes very little time. Anyone who is current in the industry and sort of knowledgeable should be able to help you within an hour quite easily. We have a number of coaches here who can do that. So if you want, speak with someone in our office and say, look, I'm looking for a general assessment. Is this right for me? Should I pursue? I don't want to go and spend, the money on a demo and the time marketing it until I know that there's a, relatively good chance that I could be marketable. And so tell that to the office and they can set you up with someone.
And I think kind of piggybacking on that. First of all, I just want to like holler at all my newbies who are kind of outing themselves as like, I'm a super rookie. Welcome, welcome. Something that was really fun about the mixers we used to host back in the times before would be that we would have such a variety of levels of experience of voice actors in the room together, and doing our open mics at the booth, and just kind of getting to meet each other and learn from each other. And I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you don't feel intimidated or scared, because there are some experienced powerhouses in the room, and then there are super rookies, and all of you are great. And so it's kind of piggybacking on this last question, because I think I know the answer that I would say, but David, what would you say is the very first thing to do to get into voiceover for a noob?
Be assessed.
Yep.
Without question.
Yes. Whether that is with us or whether that is somewhere else, meet with someone and talk about your strengths and weaknesses. I can speak a little bit to myself, Mercedes. I'm coming from the theater world, and I felt very, I don't want to say confident, but I know myself as an actor, and what I can do. And I was surprised after my coaching sessions when you all might laugh, but I was surprised when my coaches were like, you have a very youthful millennial sound. And I was like, no, I can do Shakespeare. Like, I'm an actress. And they were like, yeah, but you can kind of do a teenage, voiceover deal. So, these are things that are, and that may be funny to you because you hear me, but the way we hear ourselves is different, because we're not trained to hear ourselves in voiceover before we step into it. And there's so much to learn about what your wheelhouse might be, which might actually surprise you. I mean, some folks, it really varies, but for me, it was actually very surprising. So that's the strength of being properly assessed. Cadence is asking about demo directors / producers doing in-person creation right now in the Chicago area. I don't know if David knows anything about what's going on there, but folks in the chat, if you're in Chicago and you know people who are doing in-studio stuff, you can definitely drop it in the chat. David, do you know what's going on in Chicago?
No, I don't. In terms of whether or not studios are opened, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, Amy vigorously shaking her head.
Yeah, studios are not open, yeah. But the thing is, you don't have to work face to face, live in person with someone. If you travel long distance to a studio where you can sit down and meet face to face, other than shaking someone's hand, there's no advantage and there's only disadvantage, because in the voiceover industry, the vast majority of recording sessions take place remotely. Even before the quarantine began, probably 95% of voiceover sessions happen remotely, meaning the client emails you a script, you record the script from your home studio, the client may participate by telephone or Skype or IPTTL or Source Connect, or they don't even participate. They just say, look, here's the script, record it, send it to me when it's done. So you're getting direction from the client remotely, whether it's by email or over a phone or whatever. So it's more logical to train for realistic applications, and the realistic application is working remotely. So your training should be done remotely. I mean, that is way more practical. It's much more realistic. So if you live in Chicago and you're next door to a studio that offers coaching in person, I would still strongly encourage you to not select that studio to do your coaching at. I would find the coach in the world that's best for you, because again, it's more authentic. So you have the opportunity to select the coach that's right for you based upon the coach's knowledge rather than their proximity, and that's a great thing. So it's such an amazing opportunity.
So from TD, also a newcomer, welcome, and thanks for being here. How does a newcomer, you look amazing, how does a newcomer who is coming from corporate for over 20 years and has a corporate voice, how do you know if or when your voice is appeasing to the client? Do you mean like if Well, David, do you know how to approach that question? Do you want me to get some specifics?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not certain, but let me take a stab at it. So you might, to the person who asked the question, did you say, Siobhan, did you say her name is CD?
TD, like
Okay.
mom.
Okay. So it's an interesting question. And if I sort of get the gist of what you're asking, my assumption is that you're thinking that to be a professional voice actor, you shouldn't sound all corporate-y, meaning very articulate, very clear, very formal, and so on. But that is not the case at all. Certainly, there are scripts that are supposed to be narrated informally and sort of street friendly, but there are also a lot of scripts that need to be recorded in a more very straightforward, formal delivery. So it's always best in this industry to base your voiceover career upon your natural voice and your natural delivery. You can take your natural voice and or your natural delivery and work super hard to change it, but then you just have another set of hurdles. Um, just like in the acting world, if you're short, if you're a short person, you go for roles that require a short person. You don't have to get an operation to be taller. And if you're tall, well, the same is the case, right? You get jobs that require a tall person. You don't have to have an operation that makes you shorter to get the shorter jobs. You go where you fit. And same in the voiceover industry. You figure out what your voice is naturally capable of doing. You base it to that mix. You add your personal interests and perhaps contacts you may already have. You sort of look at the whole picture and you figure out, okay, this is where I belong in the industry. If you have a lot of contacts in the commercial world, well, maybe it makes sense to start in commercials. If you, or if you can't sit still for long periods of time, go into commercials. They're short. You don't want to sit in, if you can't sit still, then you don't want to sit in a booth recording an audiobook for 10 hours a day. So there are all sorts of things to look at. And once again, we get back to the question about selecting a coach for an initial assessment. That coach, as we do here at Edge, is going to look at these things, these characteristics of you. Like I said, are you right for the industry, and is the industry right for you? So these things need to be answered before you figure out whether or not it makes sense to pursue a career in voiceover.
And I think too, speaking to your, your experience in the corporate world, will give you a leg up and some comfort with the language of corporate speak, and that other folks like myself do not come from. And so that's a great advantage as you move towards, doing kind of corporate narration and things like that. That's that's a great place to kind of to start from. And as David's saying, the thing to remember and the thing that can get psychologically complex is like the speaking, but using your natural, just within your natural realm of your voice and, your authenticity, really.
Yeah. So just to throw in the corporate world, sorry, let me say this differently. Of the various genres in the voiceover world, corporate work is one of the biggest. We are a studio with a casting and production department, and we record a lot of voice actors, a whole lot of them. And a big percentage of those jobs that we have for voice actors are corporate material, corporate sales presentations, training videos, tutorials, podcasts for corporations. It's the telephony systems for them. It's welcome to our company videos and how to understand your HR benefit videos and compliance videos. This is huge business. So if you come from that corporate background, as Siobhan said, you get the corporate lingo, and that can be a selling point. You've lived it in person and now you voice it. So it could be a huge advantage to stick where your natural, where your interests are, where your strength is, where your knowledge is. But again, you need to understand if your voice is right for corporate work. So get an assessment.
So Lori is asking, different Lori, is asking how to protect yourself from fraud offers. What do I need to do? What do I need to look for in a contract to make sure it is on the up and up? So contract specific questions, that's really good. We haven't had that yet.
Yeah, I don't think so. So I will first say that when you run your own business, as all of you either are right now running a voiceover business or are looking into, at some point you'll probably get screwed by a client. The client is not going to pay their job, and you're going to feel really mad and taken advantage of. I'm telling you, it happens to every voice actor just about at some point. It's happened at our studio. It happens. It's the cost of doing business. Chalk it up to just, it is what it is. Don't get angry about it. Certainly protect yourself as best you can, which is the question you're asking about, and I'll get to in a moment. But I want to share a little funny anecdote. We haven't gotten screwed too many times, especially, I think, if you look at the percentage of jobs that we've done to how many times we've been taken advantage of. But one in particular is very funny. We had a client who recorded a book, a nonfiction audiobook, like a 1 hour long audiobook. The name of the nonfiction book was How to Create Wealth, or How to Save Wealth, or something along those lines, and they never paid their bill. So, you know, you talk about how to save money, how to make more money, how to have more money. Well, you don't pay your bills, and there you go. And yeah, they never paid. A lot of larger jobs come with agreements, and unless you are a legal expert, it's really good to find a media lawyer who can help you sort of go through the contract and understand it. So you can. So I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me say it this way. When it comes to work, a lot of the smaller jobs I'll talk about first don't have a contract. It is up to you, the voice actor, to supply to your client the terms. So you'll want to think carefully about the terms, if you want to be paid that same day or in 30 days or 90 days, and if you charge interest or not. And just start now. Look at every invoice you get from every job, every service provider you hire, whether you hire a painter or a plumber, you go somewhere to buy a car, you look at the legalese and just start creating a little set of terms for yourself. Make it easy to read and friendly, and give that to your clients. It is incredibly important to communicate this stuff clearly to your client. Be clear with them. Don't hold back. Don't try to hide things. Clients are used to it. We all have agreements in this world. When you get to the larger jobs in this industry, very often the client's going to send you an agreement, and it is up to you to change that agreement. Depending on how unique your voice is, how special the job is, how much the client wants you, they may or may not be willing to negotiate that agreement, and hold your ground. If you feel that something is important to you, then say, look, you know, I'm a solo business owner. These are my terms. I think highly of your company. Everything I read about you looks great. I'd love to work with you. But as I said, this change is really important to the client, and back up the reason why, and hopefully the client is willing to negotiate and ultimately come to a place of agreement and make sure you sign, and then you hope they pay. Now, what I've done in the past with some clients, and I think this is sort of a little tricky thing, but I think it works out really well, is if everything is going back and forth electronically through email, that is, I may send client a statement, an email that says, please remember you owe us $1. So I write that in the email. Now, I could always in the future say, look, I emailed that to you, but the client could say, well, I never saw your email. So every time I send a client an email, I make sure to ask a follow-up question so they have to respond. So I might say, hey, please remember you owe us $1. And by the way, didn't you think that email, that the TV show last night that we were talking about is funny? Or did he, I'll just ask some random question and they will write back. And then there's proof that that client actually saw the email, and save your proof. So, you know, do what you have to do. I hope I gave some relatively helpful information there.
Relatively helpful, Lori? Yeah.
If there are follow-up questions, let me know. I mean, it's such a big topic, and there's something else to think about too.
Here she is, so she can clarify. Yeah.
So I was approached kind of, it was off of LinkedIn, and I'm like, okay, I'm not so sure. I've been asking questions on my voiceover Facebook site, and they're like, well, I've taken jobs and been paid from LinkedIn, and it's a gentleman in Japan. So I'm like, well, why aren't you? There's plenty of English-speaking people in Japan, and we have been corresponding. I've been doing what I actually did, kept sending questions each time, so he had to respond with a question. I just want to know, like in the contract, how to scour that contract to make sure that there's nothing on it that looks fraudulent.
So, okay.
Like this,
Yeah.
it's a pretty big job, so I don't want to like get screwed over on this very big job that could last me 6 months.
Okay, whole bunch of things. Great questions. First of all, if we hire a voice actor and we need something in a foreign language, we don't care where the person lives. We go to where we'll have the most likely chance of getting an authentic delivery. So if we need a Japanese narrator, we may hire a voice actor in Japan, just like your Japanese client, if they want American English, is hiring an American English voice actor in America. It makes more sense. Your client is more assured of getting an authentic American English voice here than anywhere else in the world. There's a greater chance that it's not a second language. And because on our end of the glass, so to speak, we don't speak every language. We can record in 145 languages, and we record a lot of very remote languages like Green Hmong and White Hmong and all sorts of languages. And voice actors can send demos to us, and we don't know if it's authentic or not, but if we dial into the country, hopefully there's a greater chance that it's an authentic read and not a second or third language. So that may explain why they're coming to America. Maybe they just found your website. Maybe they like, or maybe they found you through an online casting site and there's not one that they're familiar with, so they went to voices.com or Voice123, which has a lot of American English voice actors. Second thing, well, there's a point I wanted to make, crud, I forgot. I don't know, in terms of doing the job though itself, make sure your payment terms are done in pieces. The whole job is put in pieces. You supply one module or one portion of the job, and then they pay for that before you send any additional information. So if they ever stop paying, then you're only a little bit out of the, you're only screwed over a little bit. Does that make sense? In other words, I would not work 6 months for someone without any payment. There are a lot of clients who will have a long job and the payment starts coming in on a regular basis and then they fall behind. It's taken us a long time to, I gotta say this. You have to have the courage and the confidence to say to your client, look, I want to stay on your time schedule, but you didn't pay this next month's payment and I just can't go on until you pay. You get scared about losing the client, well, they're going to be pissed at me, but if you're into the job, they probably won't stop. And let them know up front that, look, if they stand up to their end of the bargain, you're happy to stand up to your end of the bargain. Lori, it looked like you had another question now.
I'm writing down what you're telling me so I don't forget. There was a good point. Now, in the contract, it did say, sorry, I'm wrapping it up. It's 4 segments. The first segment said, okay, this is what the pay is, and everything else is in escrow. Is that normal?
Yeah, escrow is fine. It's not, there are many payment forms, but escrow is fine. It's used a lot.
Thank you, very helpful. And let's move on to somebody else.
I hope you get the job.
You're awesome, Lori. And I hope actually that is helpful for everyone else to hear, like to just how we're sussing these things out. I know, I very much dislike, it's kind of one of the worst parts, even worse than being your own engineer can be, like contracts and randos on LinkedIn.
One thing, please make sure you work out how the very, very important when working internationally. This is for everyone. Anytime you work internationally, you need to discuss how the money is transferred. Do they pay in American dollars or in currency of the country? Do you use a site like there's not Zoom with a Z, but Zoom with an X, or PayPal, or just work out these payment terms, okay? We have clients who go via Western Union. We have clients who do all different types of things for international payments. And sometimes it's very challenging. You may even want to have them pay $1 up front just to make sure that the pay works. We've done that. Also, for anyone, when auditioning with a new job, this is sort of a side note, but I think it's helpful information. Anytime you audition for a client, especially a large job, a lot of voice actors are so concerned that this supposedly new client is going to steal their audition and use it, that the voice actor puts a watermark in their audition, meaning a little blip or a bleep, or they leave out one word, or they fade out right before the end of the script or something, or they intentionally switch a couple of words in the script. They just make the recording just minimally unusable, so the prospective client can't use the audition as the actual job and then never pay for it. I personally think that is a horrible thing to do to a new potential client, because what it's doing is it's saying to your new prospective client, I don't trust you. We haven't even worked together, and already I don't trust you. I think it's better to supply a real audition, and if they take advantage of you and use it, well, still nothing lost. It doesn't take you any longer to record the script with or without a watermark. Actually, it takes less time because you don't need to add the watermark. So I think you should go into these new clients and assume that they're good-willed, and keep everything positive. And I think that you will have a much more successful career.
From Tom, I see you, Tom Dennis, in your beautiful looking home. Party at Tom's house after this. Just kidding. We're not going inside, but someday. Tom is asking, what are the key elements of a demo tape? And so I would just add to that, David, what do you listen for as a producer and casting director when you listen to demos?
Well, when it comes to demo tapes, I haven't listened to one in probably 20 years. I don't remember what tape is. My goodness, tape is a 4-letter word, guys. I remember the days of tapes and typewriters.
All right.
Demo.
You out, Tom.
We call it just a demo.
You out.
What are the key elements? The key element is that it represents you and your ability, and that's it. There are so many people talk about you need a ridiculous amount of variety on a demo, and that is not the case. You show the best representation of you, what it is that you do. If you do one thing really well, then just show one thing really well. And if you do 10 things really well, then show those 10 different things really well. There are lots of voice actors who have one style, just like some actors out there, just like some famous photographers, just like some famous artists. They do one thing really well. And if you look at their portfolios or listen to their demos, it's pretty much the same thing from start to finish. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, for a client, it's very easy to categorize a voice actor who does one thing really well. It's more challenging to categorize a voice actor who's A to Z because we don't know what category to put them in. So that's the one thing of your demo. A solid representation of your ability, your voice, what the client can get if they hire you.
I love it. I'm gonna tackle this one. Sarah's asking, and we've had this come up before about the regarding whether you should have a photo of yourself on your website and what is recommended. So being a marketing person for quite some time and working in social media and casting, sometimes things get cast through social media, right? As people find each other through more and more different ways. If you have a good photo that looks like you, that is professionally done, and you like it and you want it, that's great. Do not put a not good selfie with bad lighting that you took yourself or something that is so old that it no longer properly represents you. If that's what you have, don't do that. There are plenty of voice actors, probably people in this chat right now, who have logos that are maybe illustrations of themselves that they've done, or simply a logo with headphones and a mic, or whatever it is. And then that's kind of the imagery that they're using on their websites. Both are totally fine. Maybe you have a logo and then you've got a little bio section and you do have a professional, looking headshot or portrait that you can have. I think that the professionalism and the quality is like what matters more than, they don't need to, as we know, they don't need to see what you look like. If you feel that that helps your brand, for instance, if I'm doing, youthful millennial stuff, it's kind of, okay, they should see that I'm a young looking person. Then I can see how, then there's an argument for why that might be helpful for my brand. It's still not necessary though. If my website is light and bubbly and fluffy, it has colors and other kinds of imagery, right? So you're thinking more about your brand as opposed to your image, if that makes sense. And I think people can probably drop websites of their own or websites that they like. Sometimes it's good to even just keep track of websites that you like, so that as you're building your site, you're like, I want something that's a combination of this and this, or has this element, but this overall aesthetic, right? So keeping track of things you're into and working on what your brand is.
Siobhan, do you really think that the headshot that you put on your website has to be professionally taken? I mean, what happens if you happen to have a picture of yourself that just has the characteristics, but it was the characteristics of a professional headshot, but it's not really done professionally?
That's a great point of clarification. And sure, I would say if you've got like a nicer iPhone that has a portrait lens, or if the photo is of quality. What I'm saying is, and you all are smart, reasonable people. You know what a good photo is and what a not good photo is. Or if you don't, I hope you have a friend who that you can text and say like, hey man, does this look like somebody should hire me based on this image? I have seen stuff, and I know you all have too, that people post and you're like, come on, this is not, like, would you put it on the back of your book jacket? Because if you wouldn't, I don't think you should put it on your website. David, do you agree with that?
Absolutely, yes.
No. So he's right, though. Of course, you don't need, and goodness, I mean, in the pandemic world, you don't need to go pay for a crazy photo shoot or what have you. But like, yes, there's a barometer that you can assess, and the book jacket is how I like to kind of level that one. Okay, and then we are talking to Nancy. Hey, Nancy, who is SAG-AFTRA, but just took the leap into voiceover and is finding that most of the work is non-union for newcomers. Okay, so she's in a tough spot. What do you recommend, David?
That's a great question, and it's a quandary sometimes. But there's still a lot of union work out there. Certainly, I would estimate maybe 80% of the work, 90% of the work is non-union. I don't even know, I'm making up that number. I'm pulling it out of my rear end right now, but the vast majority of work is non-union work. But the percentage that is union, there's still some good work out there, and some of the higher paying jobs are union. So you may want to shoot for that. Also, I don't know how long you've been in the union and if you have the ability to go FI Corps, financial corps that is, but that might be a great suggestion for you, a great opportunity to go FI Corps, because that means that you have essentially the ability to record union and non-union work, but it's not right for everyone. You'll have to learn more about that and see if it is right for you and if you're even eligible for that status in the union. You can get out of the union, you can, I think what you need to do is, I think you need to learn more about FI Corps, and then you need to sit down with someone and understand where your voice is most suited for voiceover work, and understand if the genres in which your voice is most suited for tend to have union work or not. That would be your plan of attack, I think. Again, number one, learn about FI Corps, if you're eligible or not. And number two, figure out where you're most marketable in the voiceover industry, and if there's work in those genres rather, which are union or not union.
And piggybacking on that, how do I know when I'm ready for an agent?
It's a good question. I think a couple of things come to mind. One is when you have the confidence and the comfort to be able to speak with an agent, which is interesting because agents need voice actors as much as voice actors need agents. It's a partnership. But a lot of voice actors are really nervous about speaking with agents. I find it interesting, and so you need to go to an agent when you are really comfortable doing so. Second thing, you really need to have your chops down. You need to have some experience under your belt, and I can't tell you how much experience that is. Maybe that's 5 jobs, maybe it's 20 jobs, maybe it's 2 years at this, maybe it's 5 years at this. Next thing you need to consider is what the agency offers their clients. Like most agents typically offer commercial voiceover work, but if you specialize in, let's say, video game work or medical work or corporate training videos, you may have a hard time finding an agent who would even consider taking you on, because again, they're working generally in the commercial realm. So there are quite a few variables. Also depends on the size of the agency that you're shooting for. You may want to start with some smaller agencies. So I keep saying this to people, but at some point you may want to sit down with a consultant who really understands the agency world. There are a couple of people on our team who they excel in this area, and maybe it's worth having just a session with one of them just to really sort this through, figure out what makes the most sense for you. But I would not do anything until you have the comfort and confidence in delivering voiceover copy.
From Nicole, she's asking about marketing tips for beginners. And yeah, if anybody wants to weigh in on like how you begin to market yourself in this industry.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that, and it would be interesting, by the way, to see what people type into the chat box, but a lot of this depends on how you want to market. You may come to this industry with a lot of personal connections already, and if you do, that's terrific. Go after your personal connections. You may come at this with the confidence to make cold calls, and that works for some people. I know some very, very successful voice actors who get the majority of their work from actually cold calling. It seems sort of old school, but it works for them. I know voice actors who just rely on the online casting sites, and that works for them. You may go through an agent. You may get a representative. You may do a combination of all of these things. There are so many different ways to market yourself. You have to figure out what works best for you. Take our marketing class. It's cheap, and it's cheap, like low price cheap. The quality is great. It's called Marketing 101. It's I don't know how much it costs, but it's I think it's like $50 or something like that. How much is it?
It's 50, yeah.
Okay. And it's Marketing 101. Just it walks you through the various ways to market, and it'll give you some information. I would also suggest to go to voiceover forums and ask around, get some ideas of what other people do. But I will forewarn you that if you ask about marketing, a whole bunch of people will each write back their own, they'll write back what works best for them. And they will assume that what works best for them will work for everyone, and that is not the case. So person number one may say, look, dude, I make cold calls, and it's unbelievable the response I get. But maybe that person is better making cold calls than you would be. So get ideas from other people, and then lay them all out, and then figure out, your plan of attack.
For my tech type people, if just starting to market oneself, does it help to already have Source Connect already installed? In other words, does it take time to get familiar with, or can it be installed when a client needs it and get up to speed quickly? If people want to talk about whether they love or hate Source Connect or their first experiences with it in the chat, that would be probably super helpful to a number of people. But David, what do you think about beginning to market yourself and, boasting your Source Connect abilities?
It's funny. Every day I get an email from Merriam-Webster, the word of the day. It's fun. And today's was catch-22. And this is truly catch-22. Because I feel like on one hand, there's no reason to purchase Source Connect and install it and learn the software until you know you're going to need it. But when you need it, when the client calls for it, you sort of have to already have it installed, and you have to be familiar with it so you're able to use it on a whim's notice. So my suggestion with Source Connect and or IPDTL or whatever other software you end up using out there is watch a whole bunch of tutorials, videos, so on. Become as familiar as you can with them. And if you start getting any bites on your demo or on your auditions, then install it as soon as you can and learn it as quickly as you can. There are certainly times that a new client will call or email and say, we're hiring you for the job. It's by Source Connect. We want to do it through Source Connect, and we need to record this afternoon. And then you sit there and you think, well, crap, I don't even have it installed on my system. If you're really familiar with it, it's still going to take a while to download and get it working on your system and work out any kinks that may come about. So I think at some point there may come the time that you have to say to your client, I don't have Source Connect right now, but I'll have it within 3 days or 4 days. But also, in one last note, don't promote the fact that you have it until you actually have it working on your system. So if you get a job from a client and they say, can you record Source Connect? You say, I can, I'm very familiar with it. I just need to download it onto my system, but I've trained with it, I've taken numerous tutorials on it, and I've studied it. So let me just download it on my system. Please give me a day, and then the day to work out any kinks, and I'll have it all working for you. That might be the best compromise.
I want to try to get 2 more questions in because I really like both of these questions. and one of them I think is shorter than the other. So let's start with Riley. Hey, Riley. It's so great to see you. Riley's asking for suggestions to those of us who worked in radio for too long. Conversational is still tough for us.
I'm sorry, I interjected. What's the last part of the question?
He said conversational is still tough for us.
Yeah, where's the question? Like, are you asking how to get over that, Riley? He's shaking his head. Yeah, I can't hear you, Riley.
I asked
yeah, so.
There we go, unmute, so yes.
Yeah. So you have a couple of options. One is you could just accept the fact that you have a radio sounding voice, and that becomes your selling point. That becomes your strength, right? You can't be everything to everyone. You don't have to try to have every sound that came up
That's true.
Today. But if you want to be able to deliver voiceover copy without sort of adding some affectation to your voice, that the quote unquote radio sound, which you may know as the puke, right? Is that what you call it? You know, if you don't know the term puke, it is what radio announcers sort of call that very radio sounding voice. So when you read a script, just lead into the script with a couple of warm-up words, very conversational, easygoing words. So if your script is now get 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee for $20,000, you may find yourself wanting to go into the announcer style voice. But when you record yourself at the microphone, just say, hey, talk to your best friend. Hey, Mike, what's going on? You know, hey, did you know that you can get the 2020 Jeep for $20,000? Just add a couple of words to the beginning of the script to warm up on. We call it a lead-in. And then just delete those warm-up words, delete the lead-in before you send off the file to the client. Hopefully that will help you sort of fall into a more general conversational tone. And if you find that every couple of sentences, let's say 20, 30, 40 seconds into the script, you start becoming announcerish again, then throw in another lead-in. Maybe every 3 lines of text, you add into your script a lead-in, and you just make sure you go back and delete them all, and that may work.
I like that. That's great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you, Riley. Ed, I hope that Ed is still here, who is about to have his demo from Edge, because he trained with John. And he is asking about, and I think this is a great question, which is why I wanted to hit on it. He does have a USB mic, and he's wondering if the USB mic is good and is sufficient enough to begin to audition with, or should he invest in something nice right away?
So answer is this. Not all USB microphones are sufficient enough. Some are, some aren't. Same with condenser microphones, right? In other words, non-USB microphones. Some are higher quality than others. The majority of the sound quality is going to come from your surroundings, from your recording environment. So you could have a $20,000 microphone in your home, but your home just acoustically sounds horrible. Whether there's noise pollution coming in from cars and trucks outside and airplanes flying by, and maybe you live in an apartment with people walking above you and furnaces turning on below you and whatever, and your recording is going to sound horrible. Whereas maybe a really inexpensive, pretty crappy microphone would sound better in your place if it was acoustically treated. So again, you need to be, I think you need to be asking the question, not just is my microphone good enough, but is my recording setup good enough? Recording equipment being, your recording setup being your microphone and your recording environment. You have to put that into the picture because it's more important than the microphone. So earlier in this call, we talked about how to set up an inexpensive studio by banging sheets, pillows and sleeping bags and stuff onto the walls and ceiling and floor. We talked about getting free software for recording. We talked about a $200 USB microphone. Try it out, make sure that your room sounds really good. I will tell you, Siobhan mentioned you're recording your demo at our place at Edge Studio, or you're recording it through Edge. So in which case you will have to do a test through our engineer. We will not let anyone record anything unless they pass our sonic test, our audio test. So you can speak with whoever you're dealing with in our office, your education advisor, and say, look, I'd like you to have your engineer verify a recording from my studio to make sure it's quality. They will instruct you exactly what to record, how long the recording should be, where to email it. We will assess it and say, yeah, sounds great, or no, it doesn't sound so good, not good enough for demo. So that's, we'll make sure you go through that process. We won't let anyone record unless their place really sounds good.
Amazing. All right. And Ed says, great answer. Thank you, David. My sweet, sweet friends, a few things I would like from you in this moment. First, if you would like to connect with us on social media, please drop your Instagram and Twitter handles in the chat. I do a Follow Friday post tomorrow where I'll post everybody, and you'll be tagged in it and then encouraged to follow each other, and we will follow you as well. And we want to kind of keep the community going and the social media feeds full of voice actors as opposed to other depressing things that are on our feeds in 2020. So yes, amazing. Please, please drop them in the chat. As Katie mentioned, if you would like to save the chat, because there were great, great tips. This was an especially helpful and generous group today. I am so excited to know all of you, and your love and kindness is amazing. So in the little ellipses at the bottom right of the chat, when you click that, you can save it. It will save onto your computer in a Zoom file that will appear. So you hunt for it, hunt for the Zoom, and you'll see it, and you can save it, and then the interface is gross, but you'll have all the comments from everyone from the day, which is amazing. So in addition, I've got more people trying to get in here, and I don't need that. But so as a thank you for y'all coming today, we are offering $25 off of any coaching here at Edge, and the code is simply AMA. And here's the link if you want to use it just to go online, and you can get a coaching session with any coach at all, including David. If you don't want to book it online, you can also contact us at Edge, and you can do it over the phone. Our email for that is training@edgestudio.com. When you are on social media, our handles are Edge Studio. That's on Twitter. And then on Instagram, it's the same thing. It is simply Edge Studio VO. And so that's me. I'm on those things. So if you DM me there, I will take care of you. If there's something specific you need. I lost my Nigerian pal. He had a lot of really specific questions that I wanted to get to him on socials, but not this time. But yeah, so if you have more specific help that you might need, I can get you in touch with the right person at Edge and try to help you out. Otherwise, yes, thank you for everything. And and I am using I have a digital SLR. It's a Canon EOS with a 50mm lens. I'm really in the Zoom game now. You know, I'm just living that 2020 life. What else do I want to say? Thank you all for your questions. I am sorry that we didn't get to everyone. It's just kind of the way it goes. We like to be in depth because we hope that it helps to hear about other people's problems, because maybe that problem has been or will be yours someday, and then we're just trying to assess it. Yeah, I appreciate you being here with us. So our next session for this is the 27th, and we will be guest starring Noelle Romano. I'm super excited to talk to her about her career in Los Angeles. David, anything else from you today?
No, thank you everyone so much for joining us. It shows your dedication and passion for voiceover, and we love that. And Siobhan, thank you so much for being an awesome host and getting to as many questions as you can. I wish you all a fantastic 2 weeks, and hope to see you again in 2 weeks.
Have a fantastic 2 weeks. I will post this YouTube link this weekend. I'm uploading it to the cloud right now, so I don't give myself a panic attack about losing it. And you'll see it over the weekend, and then we will see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for coming. It really does. It really is just lovely for me to see your faces and just, you know, feel like I've got these great friends in the VO community. Totally, I'm looking at you, Dawn, and John, and Dina, and Tony. I love all you guys. Okay, mwah, big kisses, and, you know, social distance, Lee. Thank you, thank you. I'm saving the chat as well because it's really important. And mwah, bye, 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 bye.